The sun was dipping behind the Arizona desert, painting the sky in burnt orange and violet streaks, when I realized something was wrong. My daughter, Claire, had stopped the car abruptly on the lonely stretch of Highway 89. I thought it was another one of our usual disagreements. She was always impatient with me lately. But when she turned to me, her face tight and voice trembling with irritation, I felt an unfamiliar chill creep up my spine. "Mom, I can't do this anymore," she snapped. "You're controlling, judgmental, and you always make everything about you. Get out." At first, I thought she was joking. I let out a nervous laugh. "Claire, stop being ridiculous. We're in the middle of nowhere." But she didn't laugh. Her fingers tightened on the steering wheel. "I need space. Just get out, Mom." I froze. My own daughter. The little girl I raised after her father left us, the one I worked 3 jobs to support, was asking me to step out of her car, in the middle of a deserted highway, miles from the nearest town. "Claire," I said softly, "please don't do this." Her only response was silence. Then the sound of my suitcase being thrown onto the dusty roadside. I stumbled out, still believing she'd come to her senses. But before I could speak again, she hit the gas, and the red taillights disappeared into the horizon, leaving me surrounded by endless desert and the hum of cicadas. For the first few minutes, I stood frozen, disbelief turning into raw panic. I pulled out my phone. No signal. The temperature was dropping, and I could feel the cold cutting through my sweater. My daughter had abandoned me. I didn't know how long I walked before I saw headlights in the distance. A pickup truck slowed down beside me. A kind man named Daniel, a trucker, offered to help. He gave me water, a blanket, and a ride to the nearest town, Flagstaff. My hands trembled as I held his phone and dialed Claire's number. Straight to voicemail. Again and again. By the 5th call, I realized she wasn't just angry. She had meant to leave me there. Daniel suggested I stay at a motel for the night, and I did. I sat on the bed, staring at the cracked ceiling, tears burning my eyes. The image of Claire's face before she drove away played in my head again and again. The cold look. The determination. Something inside me broke that night, but beneath the heartbreak, a quiet flame of resolve began to burn. She thought she could discard me like an old memory. But she had no idea that by abandoning me, she'd awaken a version of her mother she didn't know existed. And by the time I was done, she'd regret every mile she drove away from me. The morning after that horrible night, I woke up in the motel room with swollen eyes and a heart that felt heavier than stone. I didn't sleep much. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Claire's face. Cold, distant, unrecognizable. The daughter I raised, the one who used to cry if I left her at preschool, had left me stranded in the middle of nowhere. After a cup of bitter motel coffee and a shaky breath, I called a cab to take me home. My home, the one Claire had been staying in ever since her marriage started falling apart. I remember staring out the window as the desert rolled past, thinking about where I had gone wrong. Maybe I was too protective. Maybe too honest. Or maybe she'd been slowly building resentment I never noticed. When I arrived home, something immediately felt wrong. The driveway had unfamiliar tire marks. The front door, which I always kept locked, was slightly open. My pulse quickened as I stepped inside. The air smelled like new paint. And something else. Change. The furniture had been rearranged. My favorite armchair was missing. Family photos on the wall had been replaced. Not with new ones, but with empty frames. It was as though Claire had started erasing me from my own life. "Claire!" I called out. Silence. I walked to the kitchen and found a note on the counter. It wasn't an apology. It was a list. "Mom, I'll be by this weekend to pick up the rest of my things. Please don't make this harder. I've taken some stuff I paid for, and I hope you'll respect that." Claire. My stomach turned. She'd taken things. I looked around. The antique vase from my late mother. Gone. The silver set her father gifted me. Gone. Even the small gold clock from our family trips. Gone. That's when it hit me. She hadn't just abandoned me. She'd been planning this. The fight, the road trip, Even the way she drove us into a remote area. It wasn't impulsive. It was deliberate. I sank onto the floor, shaking with a mix of anger and grief. What kind of daughter does that to her own mother? That night, I sat at the kitchen table with a notebook and began writing everything down. Every strange thing she'd said over the past few months. Every time she'd borrowed money. Every item that had gone missing. I didn't know what I was building yet, but instinct told me to document everything. Then, as I was cleaning up, I found something that made my blood run cold. An unopened envelope addressed to Claire, lying near the trash. It was from a collection agency. My hands trembled as I opened it. Final notice, the 38,500 outstanding debt. Legal action pending. My heart dropped. My daughter had been drowning in debt, and I hadn't known. Or maybe, she hadn't wanted me to know. That night, as I stared at the paper, everything began to make sense. She hadn't left me because she hated me. She'd left me because she needed to disappear. And by leaving me in the desert, she made sure I couldn't follow her or interfere. But she underestimated me. I wasn't just going to find her. I was going to make her face what she'd done. Not only to herself, but to me. Because if motherhood had taught me one thing, it was this: you can forgive your child 1,000 times. Until the day she treats your love like it's disposable. That's the day a mother's patience runs out. 2 days passed before I could gather enough courage to act. I was exhausted. Emotionally, mentally, physically, but the sight of that debt letter replayed in my mind like a haunting refrain. We're 38,500. Where could that kind of debt come from? And what kind of daughter abandons her mother just to escape it? I decided to visit Claire's apartment. Or at least what used to be hers. The landlord, Mr. Roberts, had known me for years. When I knocked, his face twisted in pity before I even said a word. "Mrs. Taylor," he sighed, leaning on the doorframe. "She's 3 months behind on rent. Moved out overnight last week. Left a mess." He hesitated before adding, "I didn't want to tell you, but some men came by looking for her. Rough types. I told them she was gone." My heart clenched. "What kind of men?" "The kind that don't send polite reminders," he said grimly. Inside the apartment, the walls were bare, but the chaos was unmistakable. Torn envelopes, empty bottles, fast food containers, and in the corner, a broken photo frame. It was one of her and me from her college graduation. The glass was shattered right across my face. As I picked it up, a small notebook slipped from under the table. Claire's handwriting covered every page. Names, phone numbers, payment reminders, and something worse: transactions written in red ink. Marcus, 5,000 Zelozan. Leo, 2,500. Due next week. She'd been borrowing from loan sharks. My hands trembled as I flipped through the pages. At the very end, there was a note that nearly broke me. "If anything happens to me, tell Mom I'm sorry. I never wanted her to see this side of me." Tears blurred my vision. My daughter was spiraling, drowning, and she'd chosen to face it alone rather than let me help. That night, I called the police. Not to report her, but to ask for help locating her. The officer, a kind woman named Detective Lane, promised to keep an eye out, but warned me that if Claire was running from debt collectors, things could get dangerous. "Sometimes they don't just want money," she said quietly. "They want leverage." That word, leverage, stuck with me. Over the next few days, I noticed strange things. My mailbox was tampered with. My phone rang at odd hours, but there was only silence on the other end. Someone had even been parked across the street in an unfamiliar car. Then one morning, an envelope appeared under my door. No stamp, no return address. Just a single piece of paper inside. "Stay out of it. You don't know who you're dealing with." My blood ran cold. They thought I'd back down. That I was some frail old woman who'd hide in her house, too scared to act. They had no idea who I really was. You see, before I retired, I worked 30 years as a financial investigator, the kind who dealt with people exactly like them. Fraudsters. Launderers. Thieves who thought they were smarter than everyone else. I'd caught men who stole millions and women who forged entire identities. I could trace money better than most banks could. And now, for the first time, I was going to use those skills for something personal. For my daughter. That night, I opened my laptop and started digging. Phone records, bank transfers, old contacts. Every thread led somewhere, and slowly, a pattern emerged. Claire hadn't just borrowed money. She'd been tricked, manipulated, used. And the man behind it all, the one her notes mentioned the most, was a name I recognized from an old case. Marcus Hale, a con artist I'd helped send to prison 15 years ago. Only now, he was out. And he was using my daughter as revenge. The realization hit me like ice down my spine. Marcus Hale wasn't just some lone shark. He was a predator. The kind that smiled while he ruined lives. I remembered his file vividly from my investigator days: fraud, extortion, identity theft, and a tendency to disappear right before the authorities closed in. Now he was back. And he had found the perfect target: my daughter. I spent that night barely sleeping, staring at the rain streaking down the window. The thought of Claire being tangled up with Marcus made my stomach twist. Whatever she had done, she didn't deserve to be a pawn in his twisted revenge against me. At dawn, I packed a small bag, loaded my laptop, and drove to the old part of town, where Marcus used to operate from. It wasn't hard to find the kind of places a man like him would crawl back to. I bribed a bartender with $100 and an old photo of Marcus. He squinted, then nodded slowly. Yeah, he's been around. Comes in every few nights. Talks about unfinished business. Did he mention a woman named Claire? I asked, my voice steady despite the pounding in my chest. He frowned. You mean the girl with the gold bracelet? Yeah. Poor thing looked scared out of her mind. I gripped the bar tightly. When was the last time you saw her? 3 days ago, he said. They left arguing. She kept saying she wanted out. Every second after that felt like an eternity. I stepped outside, dialing Detective Lane, giving her every detail I had. She agreed to meet me, warning me not to confront Marcus alone. But patience was something I didn't have anymore. Not when my daughter's life could be on the line. That evening, as dusk painted the sky in crimson streaks, I sat in my car outside a rundown warehouse Marcus supposedly used as his office. My palms were sweating, but my mind was sharp. Too sharp. I wasn't the frightened mother anymore. I was the investigator again. The moment I saw movement by the entrance. A tall man in a gray coat with a scar across his cheek. I knew it was him. Marcus Hale. I got out of the car quietly, recording everything with my phone camera. I followed him through the back alley, my heart thundering as he unlocked the door. Inside, the air smelled like oil and rot. The dim light revealed piles of documents, boxes of fake IDs, and ledgers his entire operation laid bare. Then I heard it. A soft sound, a muffled sob. Claire, I whispered. A figure moved from behind a crate. Disabled hair, tear-stained face, wrists tied with rope. My heart shattered. Before I could reach her, Marcus stepped out of the shadows, his smirk exactly as I remembered. Well, he drawled. If it isn't the woman who put me behind bars. Let her go, I said, my voice low and cold. He chuckled. Oh, I will. Once you pay what she owes, with interest. Consider it poetic justice. I don't owe you anything. I snapped. He stepped closer, eyes glinting. Maybe not. But she does. And if you don't want your daughter ending up where I spent 15 years, you'll cooperate. I raised my phone slightly, enough for him to see the red recording light. Already got you confessing, Marcus. That's enough for a warrant. His smile faded. You always were clever, Margaret. But not clever enough. He lunged forward, but before he could touch me, headlights blazed through the warehouse doors. Sirens wailed. Detective Lane's voice cut through the chaos. Police! Hands where we can see them. Marcus froze, his hand halfway to his pocket. 2 officers tackled him to the ground as Lane rushed to Auntie Claire. My daughter collapsed into my arms, sobbing. Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't know what he was capable of. I held her tighter than I ever had before. You don't have to explain. You're safe now. As they dragged Marcus away, he turned his head, sneering. You can't stop what's coming, Margaret. You have no idea what I built. His words lingered like poison in the air. Even as the flashing lights faded, and the officers cleared the scene, I couldn't shake the feeling that Marcus wasn't lying. Something about the operation, the documents, the scale of it, suggested he wasn't working alone. And deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. This was only the beginning of something far darker. The following morning, the city felt unnervingly still, as if it were holding its breath. Marcus Hale was in custody, Claire was back home under police protection, and yet, something about it all felt wrong. Detective Lane called me in early. Her tone over the phone had been tight, cautious. When I arrived at the precinct, she didn't waste time. She dropped a thick folder on the table, her expression grim. "Margaret," she said, "we ran a full background check on Marcus's operation. What we found isn't just extortion or fraud. It's bigger. He was working with someone, using shell companies, laundering money through small business loans. And your daughter's name is on 2 of those documents." For a moment, the room tilted. "That's impossible," I said, my throat dry. Claire wouldn't. She didn't know. Lane interrupted softly. "At least not at first. It looks like Marcus manipulated her. He used her identity to funnel money, probably to keep himself hidden." I sat there, my heart pounding so loud it hurt. Claire's face flashed in my mind, her tear-streaked cheeks, her trembling apologies. She'd been caught in a web she never even saw. "Where's the money now?" I asked. Lane hesitated. "That's the problem. We can't find it. Marcus moved it through multiple fronts. One of them under your name." My blood ran cold. "What? Someone forged your signature, your address, even your tax records?" "Margaret. He made it look like you were part of his network." For the first time in years, I felt real fear. Not the kind that makes you scream. The kind that seeps into your bones and whispers, "You're trapped." By the time I drove home, reporters were already circling the block. The headlines were merciless: "Forum ear investigor, Lin K. Do, Feyudud Rangdamar, Doagich dar duo undr federal skiar utin." Claire sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, her eyes wide with horror. "Mom, I swear, I didn't mean for any of this." "I know," I said, pulling her into a hug. "But right now, we need to think. Marcus may be in custody, but his reach isn't gone." Over the next few days, I pored over every document Detective Lane had given me. The deeper I dug, the clearer it became Marcus had left breadcrumbs. Not random ones, either. It was like he wanted me to find them. A series of coded transactions pointed to an abandoned estate outside the city. Hawthorne Hill. The name sent a shiver down my spine. It used to belong to one of Marcus's clients, years ago. A man who vanished after testifying against him. Claire begged me not to go. "Please, Mom. Let the police handle it." But I couldn't. This wasn't just about clearing my name. It was about ending what Marcus had started. The drive there was long and silent. The house loomed at the edge of the woods, half collapsed. Its windows dark and hollow like eyes that had seen too much. Inside, dust coated everything, but the air was fresh. Someone had been here recently. I followed the faint hum of a generator to the basement. And there, beneath a single flickering bulb, was a wall covered in photographs. Mine, Claire's, Detective Lane's, even Marcus's mugshot. Strings connected them like veins. At the center was one name written in red inky: Eleanor Price, my old partner. The breath caught in my throat. Eleanor had vanished years ago after a corruption scandal. We thought she'd gone underground. But here, her name was everywhere. Emails, account transfers, handwriting samples. And then I saw the newest photo pinned to the wall. Taken just days ago. It was of me standing outside the police precinct. Someone was watching. I turned slowly, every muscle tight. And that's when I heard the voice behind me. "You should have stayed gone, Margaret." The sound of my own name in that cold, familiar tone froze me in place. Eleanor Price stepped out of the shadows, her smile sharp and knowing. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The years seemed to fold in on themselves. Memories of laughter, of long nights chasing leads, of the woman who had once been my closest ally. Eleanor Price looked older, yes, but her eyes, those cold, analytical eyes, hadn't changed at all. I managed to whisper, "You're supposed to be dead." She smirked, stepping closer, the dim basement light catching on the edge of her revolver. "Death's just a matter of paperwork, Maggie. You should know that better than anyone." My heart hammered against my ribs. "You framed me," I said, my voice shaking between fury and disbelief. "You and Marcus. This was you all along." Eleanor tilted her head, studying me like a specimen. "Framed? No, you were just the perfect cover. Retired detective, small-town mother, grieving over a broken daughter. No one looks at you twice." My mind reeled. "Why, Eleanor? After everything we went through, after everything we stood for." She laughed, a dry, bitter sound that echoed off the walls. "You think I did this for money, for power? No, Maggie. I did it because I spent 20 years watching people like Marcus walk away clean while we carried the dirt. So I became smarter. If justice won't work for me, I'll work it my way." It hit me like a punch. The old Eleanor, the one who hated the system, who couldn't stomach watching the guilty go free. Somewhere along the way, her fight for justice had twisted into something monstrous. "Marcus was never your enemy," I said slowly. "He was your partner." Her lips curved. "He was my investment. Until he got sloppy." And that's when I saw it. A faint red light blinking near the floor. A hidden camera. Every word she'd said was being recorded. I shifted slightly, careful not to draw her attention. "You know they'll come for you now, right? Detective Lane has everything." Eleanor's smile faltered, just for a second. And that was all I needed. I lunged. The gun went off, the shot deafening in the tight room. Pain seared across my arm, but I didn't stop. I slammed into her, the gun clattering across the floor. We struggled, years of rage and betrayal boiling over in a blur of fists and screams. When it was over, Eleanor lay sprawled on the ground, gasping. The basement door burst open, and armed officers flooded in. Detective Lane was at the front. "Maggie!" she shouted. "Down." Within seconds, Eleanor was cuffed, still smirking through bloodied lips. "You can't stop it," she hissed. "It's bigger than me. Bigger than you." But Lane didn't answer. She just pulled me up, pressing a cloth to my bleeding arm. "You did good, Margaret. It's over." Only later, after the statements, the hospital, and the endless flashing cameras, did I finally step back into my home. Claire was waiting by the door, eyes wide and red from crying. "Mum," she whispered. "I thought I lost you." I smiled faintly, exhausted but alive. "You'll never lose me, sweetheart. Not again." We sat together in silence for a long time. The city lights shimmered through the window, and for the first time in months, I felt peace. But as I closed my eyes, one image burned behind my eyelids. Eleanor's smile, that quiet promise she'd left behind. "It's bigger than me." The next morning, Detective Lane called. "We found encrypted files in Eleanor's hideout. Offshore accounts, confidential case files, names, lots of names." "Whose?" I asked. She hesitated. "Yours was one of them, Margaret. But there's something else." A recording, time-stamped 2 days before the arrest. It wasn't Eleanor speaking. "Who then?" "Marcus," he said. "She's not the one running it. She's just the voice." My hand tightened around the phone. The air felt suddenly heavy again. I looked out the window toward the quiet street. Calm, ordinary, safe. But deep down, I knew the truth. The storm wasn't over. It had just changed faces. And Margaret Hale, once a detective, then a mother, now something else entirely, wasn't done fighting. Because sometimes, the only way to survive the darkness is to become the light that burns it down.